Before we get into today's podcast episode, I want to ask you a question. When it comes to your child's health challenges, what would you rather do? Keep treating the symptoms or finally address the real cause? I have a feeling like other parents in our community, you want to get to the underlying cause. And that's why I'm excited to invite you to my free masterclass, 3 surprisingly simple ways to transform your kids' gut health to improve their behavior, immunity, allergies, and fussy eating. You can head to the link in our show notes to save your seat. Remember, it's free. Or you can go to naturalsuperkids.com/masterclass. Our children's gut health is the foundation of their overall well-being. It's like the foundation of a house. When the foundation is solid, everything else is steady. Just like when the gut is healthy, your child's immunity, their mood, their skin, even their appetite and eating preferences are more healthy and balanced. But if the foundation cracks, you start to see issues in other areas of the house, like leaky roofs or squeaky floors. Addressing gut health is like fixing that foundation, and suddenly everything else starts to fall into place. In my free masterclass, I'm going to show you how to fix that foundation in simple, achievable steps to help improve your child's behavior, immunity, allergies, fussy eating, and so much more. I can't wait to see you there. Head on over to the show notes and click on the link to register, or head on over to www.naturalsuperkids.com/masterclass. Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast, where you will discover practical strategies to inspire you to boost the health and nutrition of your kids. I'm Jessica Donovan, a qualified naturopath specialising in kids' health, and I want to make it as easy as possible for you to raise healthy and happy kids. Let's get into it. Hello. Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast. Jessica Donovan here. I'm so excited about this conversation today. And I think I often assume that our community, our listeners here at Natural Super Kids are already sold on the effectiveness of natural medicine. But I do wonder whether there are some listeners that might still be questioning, does this really work? Is natural medicine effective? Is it backed by science? Is it just woo-woo? Some of it sounds very airy-fairy. And this is the conversation I want to have today, because I get it. It's really easy to feel that way. Naturopathy is unregulated. It's not regulated. So that opens the doors to a lot of, misinformation being shared, and some practitioners, whether they're naturopaths or other kind of natural health practitioners, being more on the woo-woo side. But what I want to talk about today is our approach to children's health is obviously the foundation of it is based on naturopathic principles. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the misconceptions that you may hear and make more of a case, even if you're already utilizing natural remedies, natural medicines, naturopathy. Talk a little bit more about, the research, not in a boring way, but I guess kind of dispel some of the myths and misconceptions around naturopathy, natural health being woo-woo, being airy-fairy, not being backed by science, only being as effective as a placebo. So this is what I want to talk about with you today. So to get started, I want to talk to you about my story. Some of you may have heard me talk about this before. I'm just going to briefly share that, the reason I started investigating and looking into natural therapies was because of health issues that I had of my own in my late teens. I developed acne, which was soul destroying for me at the time. It was really knocked my self-confidence. And, now I know that any sort of skin issue is a reflection of what's going on internally in the body, relating to diet, lifestyle, and of course, gut health. The gut and skin link is very strong. And so when I had these issues, hormonal issues as well, my periods were really irregular, and I had acne. I went along to the doctor, as you do. My mum took me along. We were not a natural health family, and the doctor prescribed the oral contraceptive pill for me. Not just any oral contraceptive pill, a really, really potent oral contraceptive pill. I was 15 at the time, and it was called Diane 35. Some of you may have been on that particular pill. And it cleared up my skin and it fixed my periods. They were regular within a few months. It did take a few months, but it was like this miraculous cure. So I thought it was fixed. And so when I came off the pill, none of this was explained to me or my mum. When I came off the pill, my symptoms came back worse than they were before. My skin was absolutely horrendous in my eyes anyway. I mean, I look back at photos now and think, it really wasn't as bad as I thought it was, but it was definitely worse than when I first went on. And that is what started my journey into, seeing a naturopath, being educated about how important gut health is when it comes to all things. For me, it was skin, but we talk about gut health being the foundation of, the skin health, but also immune health, brain health, mood, and so much more. So that is how my journey began. And I was a real life example of this at work. It did take a little while, but after some tweaks and changes, not only did my skin improve and my hormones and the regularity of my cycle, but also other niggling symptoms that I thought were just normal for me, bloating, slow digestion, were also resolved because we were working on gut health, and I never knew about the link. And so, that really started my passion for gut health and holistic health. And I then went on to study to become a naturopath myself. So I think that's a really good story that illustrates, the effectiveness of holistic health, looking at more than just taking a medication for the symptoms that we are experiencing. Now, the reason that I really wanted to cover this in today's episode, this, skepticism, underlying skepticism or really obvious skepticism about natural medicine, is because I think it is really important that we open our minds. The stats on children's health are getting worse and worse and worse. We're seeing more allergies. We're seeing more anxiety, we are seeing more gut issues, we're seeing more eczema and so many other things. The prevalence of these conditions is increasing, and modern medicine and pharmaceutical medicine, can only do so much. And what we'll talk a bit more about as we go on is this idea of modern medicine and natural medicine, naturopathy, being complementary to each other. It doesn't have to be an either or approach. They both have their place, but I am really passionate about empowering more parents to utilize the power of natural medicines. Nutrition, herbal medicines are two of my favorite modalities within natural medicines. And these two modalities have a lot of research and science that backs them. I don't think anyone can argue that nutrition, nutrients, nutritional medicine, nutritional supplements, nutrients through food doesn't have an impact on our children's health and well-being. And there is so much power in nutrition when it comes to overcoming our children's health issues as well. And herbal medicines are another really good example of a modality within natural health that is backed by research. And I'm going to be giving you a few examples in today's podcast episode. So one of the common things that, we hear a lot as natural therapists is, it doesn't work. Natural medicine is just a placebo. It doesn't actually do anything. And look, of course, the placebo effect exists in all forms of medicine, whether it's pharmaceutical medicine or natural medicine. But there is no doubt that natural medicine has been shown in countless studies to have physiological impacts. And an example here is like herbal medicine as a whole. Many herbs contain active compounds that interact with the body's systems. That cannot be argued. There was a study published in the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology that demonstrated certain probiotic strains being effective in reducing the severity of eczema in children. One study in infants who received probiotics showed significant improvements in their symptoms compared to those given a placebo. So the research in natural medicine, definitely there needs to be more of it, but there is a lot of research, and that's just one example comparing probiotics, specific strains of probiotics, to placebo. So that proves that, these probiotics are having more of an effect than just a placebo effect. Another good example is vitamin D when it comes to allergic rhinitis, hay fever, asthma in children. So there was a study that found that children with low vitamin D levels experienced more severe allergic symptoms, and supplementing with vitamin D led to a reduction in symptoms and in medication use in kids that were on medications for these conditions that they were experiencing, asthma and hay fever. So again, this was in comparison to placebo. A really well-known herb that is utilized a lot is turmeric. So turmeric contains a substance called curcumin, and it's a compound that's scientifically proven to have anti-inflammatory properties. So research has shown that turmeric has similar effects and sometimes even better than non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs without the side effects that they can cause. So these are just a couple of examples as to, that I guess overcome this misconception or challenge the misconception that natural medicine is just a placebo and it doesn't actually do anything. Another concern people have is that it takes too long for natural remedies to work. I've got to wait too long. Taking a pharmaceutical medication is much quicker. And yes, that is the case in some instances. For example, if I've got a headache that's really affecting, the way that I'm feeling, I will usually start with some magnesium and maybe some other natural therapies to see if it improves. Sometimes it doesn't, and then I would definitely be reaching for ibuprofen because that is going to be effective for a headache and it's going to be quicker acting. So some natural interventions definitely take time because they focus on long-term health and the underlying cause, the root cause, rather than just treating the symptoms. But many natural remedies can also produce immediate results. So I wanted to give you some examples here. So it's not necessarily true that natural remedies take too long to work. And the other thing is that many conventional pharmaceutical treatments also take a long time to work. I mean, I gave the example of the oral contraceptive pill that was really effective for my acne as long as I was taking it. So it was kind of this bandaid solution because I needed to keep taking it for it to be working. It wasn't addressing the underlying cause, but it also took a good 3 months for the full effects of that to take place. So that wasn't a quick, fast-acting medication either. So coming back to some examples in terms of natural therapies having quick actions, something like a ginger tea, which is a go-to for me when I've got some digestive discomfort or nausea, can work, can provide really instant relief. Apple cider vinegar for heartburn, reflux issues is pretty quick acting as well. And other examples are nutritional medicine. So things like zinc and vitamin C have been shown in research to act quickly and offer symptomatic relief for colds and respiratory infections and flus. And they've also been shown to reduce the duration of colds and respiratory infections without the side effects of similar drugs that could be used, say, for example, antibiotics if it's a bacterial infection. So again, another example of something that doesn't take weeks or months to work. It acts within days, even hours. Zinc and vitamin C power our immune cells, so they help us fight infections really quickly. Okay, let's move on to another misconception, that if it's natural, it can't be strong enough to be effective. It's weaker than the pharmaceutical alternative. So I want to just say that natural does not necessarily mean weak. I mean, we're very big here at Natural Super Kids on safety. So for example, a lot of people will think, oh, it's a herb, so my child can take it. Or it's a nutrient, it's natural, it's safe for everybody. But that's not necessarily true. And this is because of the efficiency of that particular natural therapy. A lot of natural therapies do interact with medications. And I've heard feedback from some maybe closed-minded medical professionals that say, well, natural medicines don't work on one hand, but then they're telling that same patient that they can't take natural medicines with this medication. Well, if they don't work, then what's the problem with taking them with a medication? So what you need to know here is that many pharmaceutical drugs are originally derived from plants and herbs. So for example, aspirin, a really commonly used pharmaceutical drug, comes from the herb willow bark. But what happens is it is a minute part of that herb that is extracted. So you're not getting the whole action of the herb. Now, sometimes this means that the drug will act quicker and it will be more effective more quickly, but not always. Herbal remedies often have concentrated active ingredients, making them potent when used appropriately. And, a big difference between herbal medicine and pharmaceutical medicine is that herbal medicine is the whole plant, whereas a pharmaceutical medicine is usually an active ingredient extracted from that plant. So you're not getting the benefits of all of the other compounds found within that plant. Now, an example I have here for you to, I guess, challenge this misconception that if it's natural, it's not strong enough to be effective, is omega-3 supplementation used in children that have been diagnosed with ADHD. So several studies have shown that omega-3 supplements that are high in EPA and DHA, which are the active constituents within an omega-3 supplement, can improve attention and reduce hyperactivity and impulsivity in children with ADHD. So a meta-analysis of 16 clinical trials concluded that omega-3 supplementation led to significant improvements in attention, in cognitive performance, comparable to the effects of pharmaceutical medications without the associated side effects. And this is a huge thing, Again, I'm definitely not anti-pharmaceutical medication. Some kids with ADHD can do really well on the drugs, the pharmaceutical drugs for ADHD. But there are definitely side effects that are associated with those. And you can definitely get side effects from natural therapies, but usually they are way less in terms of the number of side effects and also the severity of those side effects. So when we're talking about omega-3, it really makes sense because omega-3 plays a critical role in brain function, particularly in the areas that are related to attention and mood regulation. So when we take omega-3 supplementation, of course, we are going to have improvements in those areas. And so, yeah, that's, I think, a good example as to some research that tells us that omega-3 supplementation, a natural remedy, a nutritional remedy, does provide significant improvements comparable to the pharmaceutical medications that might be used for kids with ADHD as well. Okay, another misconception is that natural medicine is unscientific. There's no research behind it. Now, this one makes me laugh because there is so much research behind some of the modalities within naturopathy, particularly nutritional medicine, and herbal medicine, and so many studies related to the gut microbiome, which we are very focused on when it comes to what we do here at Natural Super Kids. So I find this one really frustrating. And it's one of the most common kind of misconceptions or myths as well. So let me give you some examples. There are a lot of examples here. There is more complementary medical research than most people would believe or recognize. And that, like, an example is the Cochrane collection, which includes more than 150 reviews of complementary and alternative medicine and about 6,000 pieces of randomized research. I mean, I've already talked through some examples in today's podcast episode already, but things like probiotics are really well researched for gastrointestinal issues, and there's more and more research being done on probiotics for mental health and mood disorders, which are, all showing really promising results. There's a lot of research when it comes to herbal remedies for things like eczema. Things like licorice root and chamomile and calendula have been studied for their anti-inflammatory properties in managing pediatric eczema. There was a study done in 2010 that found topical chamomile extract was as effective as hydrocortisone cream in reducing eczema symptoms. And, I've mentioned the omega-3 for ADHD, the vitamin D for allergies and asthma, and these are just a few examples. So, yes, more and more research is needed, but there is more and more research being done when it comes to natural therapies, and there is already a lot that us natural therapists refer to constantly to, make sure we're on track with the latest research. And also, many universities and research centres are now studying nutrition, herbal medicine, lifestyle interventions, the gut microbiome, because the research that has been done is showing so many, promising results. And lastly, I want to talk about the misconception that if natural remedies really worked, why aren't doctors using them? So this is a valid, point. And I guess the way, my answer is I don't know why, more doctors aren't more open to natural medicines. It is promising that more and more doctors are, becoming aware of at least some natural therapies and modalities that we use within natural medicine. But it's hard to fit it into the structure of modern conventional medicine. So natural medicine often requires a more individualized, preventative approach, which is a very different approach than modern conventional medicine. But as I said, more and more doctors are beginning to integrate natural approaches especially as the research grows. And you'll see more and more, you may have noticed more functional medicine practitioners or integrative medicine doctors who are blending conventional medicine with more natural therapies. And more and more doctors are also recommending things like mindfulness or probiotics or dietary changes. So that is in line with these therapies becoming now more mainstream, which I, for one, am really excited about. But I think it's really important to know that we don't have to choose. Natural remedies are not in competition with conventional medicine. It doesn't have to be either or. They complement each other and they both have their place. So if my child was having a severe allergic reaction, I'm not going to go to my natural therapy toolkit probably. If they're struggling to breathe and, they're having some sort of anaphylactic reaction, that is a medical emergency. I'm going to be taking them to emergency. So the medical pharmaceutical approach is great for emergencies. It's great for getting on top of symptoms, whereas natural therapies, it's more of that preventative approach, more of a supportive approach where we're supporting the body to do its work. So we provide the body with the ingredients that it needs to be in balance and to be well, as opposed to pharmaceutical medications, which are coming in often and disrupting, different biochemical pathways to prevent, certain symptoms from being experienced. And that can come in really handy in medical emergencies. So if I've got a child with ongoing mild allergies, as opposed to a child that's having a severe allergic reaction, then I am going to be looking at things like vitamin D, probiotics to help to support their immune regulation, and to reduce the severity of those allergy symptoms over time. I think that's a good example of where, each of the forms of medicine come in handy. And I, for one, as a mum, my kids are now teenagers. I just don't know how I would have got through their childhood without access to the knowledge that I have as a naturopath and the remedies that come in so handy when they've got colds or flus or a rash or a tummy upset. There's so many things that we've got to address, these things that inevitably come up in our kids, and also those more chronic conditions like eczema, like allergies, like ADHD, which I hate to call a condition, but like that fits into what I'm sort of saying here is that, natural therapies, nutrition, herbal medicine has a lot to offer to support these kids to reduce the symptoms of these kinds of conditions and imbalances, and also over time to reduce the severity of things like eczema and allergies, and the symptoms associated with ADHD as well. So natural therapies comes in so handy for those acute things like the sore throats, the coughs, the fevers, the colds, the tummy upsets, the rashes, and it also is so handy to have access to for those more chronic conditions that the medical, the medical approach to health doesn't have a lot of answers for, except, if your child's having an allergic reaction, then make sure you've got an EpiPen on hand. But there's not a lot they offer to reduce the severity of those reactions, or to regulate the immune system so it's less allergic over time. And so I'm just super passionate about spreading the word about how effective and important natural therapies are when it comes to our children's overall health and well-being. And this is the reason that I developed and created the Natural Super Kids Club, to give parents this one-stop shop where they can come to get expert practitioner support from trusted practitioners, not just some random person that they find on the internet where they don't know, if they're qualified or not. So giving parents access to that support from qualified practitioners that are actually knowledgeable and experienced in children's health, not just natural health in general, and also to have this whole range of resources available to parents, recipes and masterclasses and cheat sheets and cooking demonstrations where you can tap in and access the resources that are going to be helpful for you, depending on what challenge you're having at the moment. Because raising kids, all sorts of challenges come our way, and it's inevitable that our kids get sick, that they get that their systems get imbalanced, that they go through fussy eating stages. And so I wanted parents to have the resources to be able to address these things, that was really convenient and affordable. So if you're listening to this in real time, we are currently open, the Natural Super Kids Club, and welcoming new members. We would love to support you and to empower you to utilize natural medicines, nutrition, lifestyle interventions that can make such a big difference to your children's health and well-being. So currently our doors are open until Monday, the 28th of October. If you're listening to this after that date, I'll make sure I pop the link to our Natural Super Kids Club waitlist in the show notes, so you can pop your name on the waitlist and be the first to know when we open the doors again. But if you're listening to this in real time, the link to join us in the Natural Super Kids Club will be in the show notes. We would love to welcome you. We would love to support you and to empower you to be proactive when it comes to your children's health and well-being, and not just leave it to the so-called experts that have 10 minutes, to spend with you. And I'm talking about that average kind of medical appointment where you don't get the time to really dive into what's going on for your child. And, I just want to make it clear there are definitely some great doctors out there, and pharmaceutical medication definitely has its place. But what we find is when you utilize natural medicines, you generally need less of those doctor's appointments, you need less of those medications, but you've got that choice if and when they are needed, because they do have their place. So I would love to see you in the Natural Super Kids Club. Click on the link in our show notes to find out more. You can also head over to our Instagram, where we'll be talking about the Natural Super Kids Club this week as well. And if the club is not for you, that's absolutely fine as well. I hope this episode has been helpful and it's given you a new way to look at natural therapies supporting your family. I'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Head on over to our website, naturalsuperkids.com, for the show notes for this episode, as well as a whole heap of inspiration to help you raise healthy and happy kids. I'll see you next week. We talk a lot about gut health on the podcast. And when people hear gut health, their first thought is often probiotic supplements. And yes, probiotic supplements can be super helpful, but gut health is about so much more than just probiotic supplements. In fact, focusing only on a probiotic supplement is like trying to build a house with just one tool. Gut health is the foundation of your child's overall well-being, affecting everything from behavior, immunity, allergies, mood, and fussy eating. But if you're only looking at probiotics, you're missing out on the bigger picture. In my free upcoming masterclass, 3 surprisingly simple ways to transform your kids' gut health, I'll be diving deeper into how you can support your child's gut health naturally without relying solely on probiotics. I'd love to see you there. We have 3 live sessions to choose from. You can sign up via the link in the show notes or head on over to naturalsuperkids.com/masterclass. It's completely free and I promise you'll learn a whole heap about taking better care of your child's gut health and improving their overall well-being.